fellow developers, writers, and everyone who loves game design.
Welcome to DLC Not Included, our weekly podcast where we discuss game development, the industry, and everything in between.
We are your hosts, Steele
and Teal. Glad you can join us.
We're now in episode 15 of our first season, and we're getting close to that first season finish line.
Yes, we are. And hopefully our listeners have come away so far with really good tools and ideas for game dev and things to try.
Yeah, being a good indie developer.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump right into today's topic because it is a very, very meaty one. Before we do that, of course, I want to say thank you to all our live audience listening, whether it be on Twitch or Discord. We love you guys. And if you're listening to us on, Spotify, Amazon Music, what have you, lots of love as well. All right, what's that meaty topic we're going to tackle today?
Emergent game technology.
All right, so by the way, guys, this has absolutely nothing to do with Emergent Game Technologies, the company, the ones that hold the license to Gamebryo Engine, just making sure we all know that.
No, this is a really relevant topic.
Yes, it is. So let's actually go ahead and define emergent game technology. Let's define that.
Well, first of all, I go to my handy-dandy Oxford dictionary, and emergent game technology is defined as the process of coming into being or becoming prominent.
That is the definition of
emergent.
Of emergent, okay. Because we're going to focus on both of those aspects, both the process of coming into being and of becoming prominent. When something's coming into being, it's being discovered, it's being used for the first time.
Right.
When it's becoming prominent, it's becoming pushed into the forefront of whatever.
More people are adopting it.
Right. In this
case,
that's
what that means.
In this case, the game industry. Now, in the game industry itself, a technology is going to be emergent if it's very new.
Right.
Or
if it's pushed into mainstream use.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's becoming prominent.
Yes. Yes.
Now, we need to clarify something real quick to kind of go and hit the Wayback Machine for a minute or two so you all will understand that emergent technology in the game industry now is not what it used to be.
Right.
When talking about the game industry, new technology, we'll just call it new technology now.
Okay.
Because I'm going to mispronounce emergent. So, back in the day, new technology in the game industry always really meant like stronger, more capable systems and some niche hardware and niche software. That was considered emergent new.
Right. And a really good example of the more powerful would be the console wars of the 90s.
Yes.
Genesis versus Super Nintendo, that sort of thing.
Right.
In all those cases, though, the consoles were always twice as strong as before. So you go from 8-bit to 16-bit to 32-bit, et cetera, et cetera.
The reality, guys, for those of you who are computer buffs, you'll know, bits doubled because that's how binary likes to function. And it wasn't really double the strength. Yeah. It was more like you're almost exponentially getting stronger. However, back then they just would say, 8-bit, 16-bit is twice as strong as 8-bit. And it was a way of buzz. It was very clever marketing. It turned this natural progression of how hardware works into a power struggle with winner take all.
Sega lost, by the way.
They really, really did. Rip Saturn. Press F to pay respects.
Yeah. So an example of niche hardware, so we're getting into the hardware of this now,
right.
is the IntelliVoice from the 1980s.
Oh, God, does anyone remember that? The IntelliVoice was this little module that plugged into the Intellivision, which, if you know what the Intellivision was, we can be friends. And it was like $100 for this.
Yeah, which was a lot of money back then.
It really was. So the Intellivision was like $150. Then you had to pay $100 for the IntelliVoice, and all it was a voice synthesizer.
Yeah.
And there were like 4 games.
Only 4? Oh my gosh.
With a very bad robot voice. It sounded like the HAL 9000 was stuffy and having an allergy attack.
Wow.
What else would be considered niche hardware?
Well, if you remember, some of you Nintendo fans, remember the Nintendo Zapper?
Ah, yes. That little light gun that would not function nowadays on an LCD monitor.
Yeah.
Only on a CRT. That was a very niche hardware that was highly, highly successful. By the way. Yeah.
The Power Glove, though. Nintendo's Power Glove.
Oh, man. You and the games are one big mess.
Right. And, of course, the Virtual Boy.
which we do not talk about Virtual Boy.
We don't talk about Virtual Boy.
Pretty much only one of these was successful. So yeah, most niche hardware, which is what they would refer to as new technology that's going to redefine gaming. Most of it failed.
It failed. Yeah.
Now you got your niche software.
Okay, so niche software. This is up my alley. Okay, you got the edutainment software. Think Math Blaster and Tink Tonk.
Yes. Old school stuff.
Yeah, like and Build a World, like the Dream House or Geopolitic of 1990. And we don't want to forget the Create Your Own Games. Those games adventures.
Create Your Own Games.
Yeah.
We're not talking about game engines, by the way. What were some examples of those?
Adventure Creator and Adventure Master.
Right. Basically, with Adventure Creator, you could create a simple ASCII-style dungeon, and with Adventure Master, it was like you were making Zork. Very limited.
Yeah, very limited. Yeah.
The point of all this, though, is we wanted to show you that emergent technology... Hey, I said it right.
You did.
I did. Emergent technology then is not what it's considered to be now.
No.
Nowadays, it refers to innovation that pushes those boundaries of what a game or a piece of hardware can actually do.
Right.
So moving forward for the rest of this podcast, when Teal and I mention an emergent technology, we're talking about something that has been carefully planned on a scientific and engineering level to push the game industry together as a whole, not just create some cash grab.
Right.
Because just remember, guys, in the 80s and 90s, the game industry was recovering.
Yes, it was recovering.
From that massive crash, especially in the 90s. And it was trying to discover itself.
Yeah.
Now the game industry knows more what it is, technologically speaking, and we can move forward. So
yeah, we can.
Let's actually go over 10 emergent technologies that you as game developers need to watch. And we'll kind of tag team this. Tell you what, I'll go first, you go second, I'll hit the odds, you hit the evens.
That sounds good. Just, I want to make sure that everybody understands that these are here now.
Yes.
But every single one of these has the potential to push forward.
Yes.
And redefine how we create games.
Right. And any one of these could become the mainstay.
Right.
So we're going to mention these 10.
10 of them.
A year from now, one of these could be common. Yep. So common, it's not even funny.
Right.
Let's start with augmented reality.
Okay.
So augmented reality is when the game overlays the real world. Doesn't replace the real world, but it overlays it. Think like your Pokemon Go or the Night Terrors game. Remember that cell phone game that used like your microphone and your camera and the graphic to turn your house into a haunted house?
Yes.
Yeah, that was Night Terrors. That's AR. That's augmented reality. Now, there's definitely a highly defined separation between the player and the experience. It draws them into it because through their phone, or I guess that thing Google Glass, that didn't work out, did it?
Yeah, those Google Glasses thing.
Didn't work out. But cell phone mostly uses AR.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel like the world around you is part of the experience, even though it's like you're looking through a looking glass.
Right.
So that's augmented reality. You do want to keep your eye on it. It is not going anywhere.
And then, of course, there's virtual reality.
Woo-hoo.
And for those of you who don't know VR,
it's my favorite.
It's when the player wears a head-mounted display, we call an HMD, and interacts with an immersive world of any kind, like Beat Saber or Half-Life Alyx.
Right.
The senses are tricked into thinking that the player is really there.
Right. So when someone says virtual reality, I know that anyone who's a fan of Studio Blue and comes to our AMAs or any of our podcasts or cast or anything, Steele never shuts up about VR because he's a big VR enthusiast. But the thing about it is it replaces your reality. When they call it a virtual reality, it's taking the place of. It is a fake reality that takes the place of the real one. The big headset thing is, of course, the common one.
Right.
But any type of technology that puts the player into something outside of the real world, that doesn't blur the line, but erases the physical world and puts in a digital world, that is VR. Technically, you're in VR when you play one of those arcade games like Jurassic Park where you're inside the Jeep. And all of the windows of the Jeep are...
That's true.
Or the screens, or the BattleTech pods.
Those pods, yeah.
That's VR. That is VR.
Yeah.
So that's not going away.
No, and in fact, I just want to make a little side note here. VR is not just used in games.
No.
Architecture uses VR. The architect can actually go in and they're walking through their house that they're designing.
Yes.
And they can make adjustments in real time to their design plan. They're actually walking in it. Right. So VR is being used in a lot of ways.
Surgeons train in VR.
Yes, surgeons do train in VR. Yes, they do.
So it has a multiple applications. But going back to the game industry.
Going back to games.
And going on to the next one, this is one to really watch out for. It's called mixed reality.
This is new.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about the mixed reality headset that Windows has. I'm talking about the concept of mixed reality. It's a combination of AR and it's VR. It's the two things together where hardware, like a HMD, like a head-mounted display, projects virtual objects seamlessly into the real world. Think of it like this. With mixed reality, you could look at your desk, like your office desk.
Okay.
And you could pull up a lamp, and that 3D model of the lamp would be planted on your desk in a way that as you moved your head around it, I say moving my mouth around the microphone, as you move your head around it, it shifts position like it's actually there. And you would see how that lamp would actually look on your desk before you ordered it.
Perfect. Yes.
That's mixed reality. Another one would be like you're in Costco looking for something you really want to buy, and you bring up a mixed reality and a line goes.
Yeah.
Just think of it like a glowing, pulsing line bringing you through the Costco.
And you can follow that line and it takes you right to the item you're looking for.
Right. So there's no real mixed reality games that use the purest parts of this technology. There's things like Do You See Me Now and other games that kind of get close to it, but we're not quite at the point yet where true mixed reality is being used. But this is something to watch out for because you could go to something like a laser tag station, one of those big places that look like a CQC training area.
Oh, that's right.
And you put on the headset and you'd be looking around in real space, but like your enemy that you could shoot with your virtual gun would be there, or the monster that you're trying to run away from, or whatever.
Perfect. Yeah.
That is mixed reality, and I really think that this is going to, in the future, become a major thing in full experiences.
Yeah, I think so too.
Full bodies. By the way, a side note here, most games that tout being mixed reality, they're really AR VR.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
We're not there yet.
Not there yet.
But we're getting there. And honestly, this moves into the next emergent technology to watch because this is often incorporated with VR.
Right.
And that's haptic feedback.
Oh, yes.
What this does is it simulates your sense of touch, usually through vibrations. For years now, controllers have been doing this. They do the rumbling thing.
Yeah.
But haptic feedback is now so refined, it can create the sensation of touching something solid in the game. Or like, ouch, being hit.
Like from a haptic vest.
Yes.
Two ways that this is being used right now. Going back to my favorite VR game, Half-Life Alyx. If you touch a door or a surface in Half-Life Alyx, the controller vibrates enough to give you that immediate sensation you're touching something physical. So you almost feel like I can't move further in the virtual space because I'm touching something real because the controller's telling me. There's also these games that you can go play where you're like, again, you're it's like a laser tag thing. And if the laser hits the vest where you get hit, that vest kind of pushes against you a bit. So it feels like you're getting impacted.
Oh, that's so nice.
These are real now. This type of haptic feedback is happening right now.
Yes, it is.
Games are starting to incorporate the player's body more and more and more. Speaking of body, voice recognition.
Yeah, that definitely.
Voice recognition is an emergent technology that has been around forever. Remember Dragon Naturally Speaking and the other voice to text that did not work?
It didn't work, but the idea was a good one.
And now you open up your Siri or your Amazon or whatever, and they understand you completely.
Yes, they do.
And it works in games too. It allows the game to understand what the player is saying and react appropriately. It can gauge things like the volume and the pitch. One of our favorite games to play.
Oh yeah, Phasmophobia.
It's used to make the game more challenging by the ghost being able to hear you. So what started as something that was almost niche turned into a technology that is going to become absolutely commonplace. And all the developers listening, keep your eye on how voice recognition can be used to really bring your game to the next level.
Yeah.
But that's not the only recognition, is it?
No. We've also got facial recognition. Wherein the game will recognize the face of the player, as well as the positioning of their face, their eyes, their lips, etc. What this does, it allows the game to read the player's expressions.
Right.
And then react accordingly.
Right. And just an FYI, this is used by developers as well. And we get into the next section, we'll kind of go a little bit more into how. But facial recognition has been used for a number of years with a number of applications, but now it's starting to be applied in games itself.
Yes.
And developers, you yourself can use facial recognition software right now to increase your player experience, the user experience. More recognition?
Gesture recognition.
Gesture recognition. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So in this, the game recognizes the movements of the joints of the hands and the fingers. It's kind of amazing. They know exactly what the hand is doing, exactly what it looks like. If you guys remember the old Xbox Kinect, that was a very rudimentary form of this. It would track the wrists, the elbows, the shoulders. It was pretty cool, and it still actually is quite functional for the time. But the technology is just getting much, much, much better.
Yeah, it is.
Teal and I actually have a piece of software we got from Reallusion that specifically tracks the hand.
Yes.
Specifically, and it's very accurate. Speaking of tracking.
Eye tracking.
Woohoo!
Yep. This is gaining a lot of steam.
Yes.
This is where the game tracks where the player's eyes are looking, and it pinpoints exactly where in the game world the player is focused.
It is creepy. Now, VR headsets do this the most.
Yeah.
The newer ones are.
The newer ones can do this.
And it's going to just get more and more common. Excuse me. It's going to get much, much more common as the technology is getting better and better at seeing where the eye is looking and translating that into the 3D world.
Yeah.
Speaking of virtual worlds, now this particular one has had its problems, but we're going to talk about cloud gaming.
Cloud gaming, yeah.
Okay, so cloud gaming means the majority of the game's computations take place within the cloud, the internet.
Yeah.
Then they broadcast the results to the player's display. Everyone knows the infamous Google Stadia.
Yeah, we know that.
That massive mess.
It did not succeed.
It did not. But that was an attempt at basing an entire gaming system in the cloud. Now, we learn from failures.
Yes.
With the failure of Google Stadia, we now have learned more about how, we in the industry can use cloud gaming properly. And as our infrastructure of the internet starts to increase, as the understanding of what we should and should not put on the cloud, as opposed to the physical system in front of the player,
and the pipeline, the actual streaming itself,
the compression, all of that, as we learn how that will work, cloud gaming is a technology that can absolutely be used. But now we're going to go over the technology that not only is being used, but it should be used.
Yes.
The big focus of immersion technology. Go for it, Teal.
Machine learning.
Oh, yeah.
Machine learning. In games, it means that the game's AI observes the player as they go through the game. They use those observations as training data.
Right.
Excuse me. And then it attempts to make predictions that both help and hinder the player without being specifically programmed to do so.
Right. If anyone knows how machine learning works, basically, would you like some water, honey?
I got some, thank you.
Okay. Machine learning takes a training data. It's called training data. And it's kind of like a base of where to start with. And then it observes what the user interface, the player, etc., does. And then it makes changes. So it has a base and it starts to make changes to its actions.
This is very, very exciting because now we're taking gaming to the next level.
Oh, yes.
And streamlining, customizing the game to the player's reactions and experience.
And adjusting the game itself based off of how the player is playing it.
Yeah.
One of the best examples in the past 5 years is Metal Gear Solid 5. Its machine learning was nuts. And there's a lot of good recent ones as well, but that one is just a great example of using it to the nth level. But this has been used. Machine learning has been used in games as early as Left 4 Dead. With its director AI and its sound designer AI.
That's true. Yeah, Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, and it's one of the driving forces behind Half-Life Alyx, my favorite VR game. Let me kind of explain that.
Yeah, let's do a deep dive into that one.
Right. So with Left 4 Dead, there was 2 AIs. A director AI that actually watched the players, and if the players slowed down, it would start throwing things to drive them forward on the critical path, and if the players was having trouble, it would start pulling it back. Like, for example, the rush of hordes of zombies, the hundreds of zombies that would come rushing at your asses, would be if the director responding to players lollygagging.
Yeah.
And then there was the sound director AI, which you would use certain sounds, screechings here, croaking things over there, crying off, screaming off in the distance, gunshots, in order, wherever the player was, in order to create a more harrowing experience.
Yes.
Half-Life Alyx has taken it to the next level, and other games have as well, but I'll focus on that one because I'm so familiar with it. For example, in Half-Life Alyx, the game learns your shooting patterns and predicts how much ammo you're going to burn through an area, and then either provides more or less drops so that your ammo balancing is about the same.
Nicely done.
The game also, with the gravity gloves, which is the ability to pull things in from a distance, kind of like a force pull, it uses an AI to figure out how your hand moves to make it so that it's less and less probable you're going to miss what you're pulling in. Little things like that, where the game is constantly watching you.
Yeah.
Seeing what you're doing and making adjustments so that it's a more even playing experience. That's just crazy. Anything to add to that? Of just where machine learning can go?
Machine learning right now it is being experimented on and pushed into different directions and applications, not just in gaming. And honestly, I think machine learning is going to be the next big step, the big leap that gaming is going to make.
And if you are a developer...
Internally.
Thank you.
Internally.
And if you are a developer who really wants to make it in this industry, be needed, become a programmer who's good at programming machine learning, machine AI, game AI.
Yeah.
You will find work.
Yeah, you will.
In fact, any of the things we just discussed... If you get good, and you don't just want to make your own games, but you want to work for the industry, any of those technologies, becoming proficient in working with them, will definitely get you some form of employment.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to guarantee you get a job, but it's going to definitely make you more marketable. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how you indie developers can use each of these emergent technologies. Before we start, though, we want to give a disclaimer. Go for it.
No matter what engine you're using, you can make use of at least some of this technology. You just need to work with your tools. Excuse me.
All right. So you need to work with your tools, regardless of your engine, whether it be as a robust engine like the CryEngine or Game Maker Studio, RPG Maker, Unreal Unity. It doesn't matter. Any one of the things we just talked about, you could technically use some, if not all, of these technologies. Now, here's the thing. You may have to learn how to program different kind of plugins and stuff. You may have to get down into the code level in order to modify this, but there's nothing that's going to stop you from using these techs, except for your own fear. Your fear of failure or your fear of trying to do something new. You got to think outside the box. That's really it. If you want to get good at using emergent technology, think beyond just what plug and play can I utilize.
Yeah, just think creatively, think outside the box. I want to jump into the first one.
Okay, go for it.
Because I really, really like this.
Okay, go for it.
But augmented reality. Let the player take care of their own character's pet offline through an app. And the care that they provide will bolster that pet's strength. You could even take your pet out for a walk and possibly gain items using this pet.
Right. Think of it like a Tamagotchi that actually influences in-character games. The Amiibo and stuff like that.
Yes.
You have a character pet that you have in your console game or your PC game, and when you save your game, it uploads the pet to the cloud. And then you have an app on your phone that you've connected to your profile. and the pet is downloaded into the app, and you can take it for a walk. You can bring it over here. You can kind of train it like you're playing Pokemon Go or Ingress or whatever.
Right.
And then it finds things. It gets stronger, and then in the game itself, it goes back into the game, and it helps you with the game itself. Then let's talk about virtual reality.
Okay, so you can make your game work with a VR headset. It's that simple. So long as you can cast 2 slightly varying versions of your rendered scene, because you have each eye of your HMD.
Right. To kind of
each eye.
To kind of very quickly make sure everyone understands, all virtual reality is taking 2 very slightly different angles of the 3D scene or the 2D scene or whatever, and then casting it to each eye, because that's how our eyes work. There is nothing different between that, and it's not magic. It really isn't. I mean, you can do it with anything, right?
Yeah, most engines will do this out of the box, but you could do it in any engine.
Yeah.
I guess you could even conceivably cast Doom from 1993 in VR.
Wow, the old Doom.
The old
VR.
Doom.
But you could. You would just have to change the way the engine projects that flat image. You could do it with an RPG Maker game. You really could. So, let's move on to mixed reality.
Mixed reality.
Go for it, hon.
Well, you can have your character's home base. I say that in quotes, home base, along with their followers and waifus and husbandos, and be in real space. The player can lay out in their own home where the various people and things are, and then interact with them casually when not logged into the main game. Oh, can you imagine how cool that would be?
Yeah, let's say that you set up your actual house in your character profile. You're playing some fantasy RPG.
Right.
And you found these followers, these waifus, these husbandos, whatever. And you can now interact with them off the game. And this is like the home base where your character is just literally going around. You maybe have your trophies on the wall over here.
Yes.
And you can sit down and kind of chat with your waifu or your husbando. And they would respond, limited responses based off, of course, the AI, the programming, just dialogue trees, etc. But
and see, that can get sophisticated too. You can actually program in really sophisticated dialogue, machine learning dialogue, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, just really push the envelope to where it feels like you're really talking to this person.
Yeah.
I mean, you're really talking, having a conversation. It's not just times are tough.
And they're sitting on your couch. They're sitting on
your couch.
So, yeah, it's, again, mixed reality is one of the ones that Teal and I truly believe that once it takes off, it's going to redefine the gaming experience.
Yeah.
But let's kind of entrench a little bit.
Okay. Let's bring in haptic feedback. You can use this to mimic sensations that the character feels, instead of just rumbling the controller when something happens. I mean, short bursts of vibration can do so much more than just this long, hard shake.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to use motion controllers like in VR, use haptic clues as to when the player's gripping something or touching something solid.
So one thing you can easily do in the Unreal Engine is you can measure the strength and duration of a haptic feedback.
Yeah.
So you could have it be so that whether I'm using a Vive wand or a touch controller or a Valve control, index control, doesn't matter. That when I pick something up, I feel a little bit of resistance if I squeeze.
Yeah.
And I have my hand in just the right position. Or if I put my hand on a surface, just a little rumble, and the more I push, the more it rumbles.
Yeah.
And my brain's going to say that's solid.
Yeah.
So you can use and anybody, by the way, you can use haptic feedback right now. You can use haptic feedback with Game Maker Studio and the RPG Maker engine. All you have to do is just say, well, hey, they have a controller. They're not using the keyboard. If you have a controller, when this happens, give it a quick shake. When this happens, give it a small but longer shake. Send the signal to the controller. The hardware will do the rest.
Yes, it will.
Speaking of using the player, let me go ahead and go through this one.
Yeah.
Voice recognition. That is just something amazing. Have the game hear the player. We're talking well beyond just phasmophobia.
Right.
Have the game, and you can do this right now with the tools you have, measure the volume, the tone, and the pitch to determine things like, is the player stressed? Because your voice changes when you are stressed, when you're feeling stressed. and have the game's voice recognition kind of pick that up. Change the difficulty appropriately. So maybe if they're stressed, you make it a little easier, or you make it a little harder.
Yeah.
Find out how the player speaks. Follow the speech patterns, and have an NPC talk in a similar manner to build rapport. Again, you're just analyzing data.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
then regurgitating the data. Have voices over a certain level trigger the guards. Like if you're doing a stealth mission.
Oh, that's right. If you're on a stealth mission and your voice is at a certain volume level,
right,
the guards will start looking for you.
Yeah. Have a game that you can have a conversation with.
Ooh, yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
Uh-huh.
I remember this old game called This Is Not a Game or something. It was it's a fun game. I think it's like about 5 years old maybe. Couldn't it be hilarious if you could talk to that game?
Yes.
While you're playing it? That would have been awesome.
Well, in addition to facial recognition, there's gesture recognition.
We know we're on facial recognition, Teal.
Okay. Sorry. So facial recognition, you can have the game read the player's expressions and figure out their mood. Like a player who is looking cocky can get one response, while one looking contrite or sad gets another. You can have an NPC policeman try to judge if the player is lying based on facial tics.
Right. Remember the game L.A. Noire?
Yes.
You play a detective, and you have to look at the facial expressions of the people you're interrogating to see if they're lying.
Yeah.
Well, why not, using facial recognition, have the game do that to the player?
That
would be amazing.
Yeah.
And let's go to, let me go over gesture recognition.
Sure.
So, gesture recognition, let the player cast spells with their hands.
That would be amazing. Can you imagine playing a wizard type game?
Right. Or the I'm gonna get it wrong. Forgive me, Naruto fans. The ninja abilities that they have. I'm totally butchering that, but that would be awesome. Or let them make their own gestures for a power.
Ooh, yeah.
And then they can use that gesture later. So instead of having to memorize your spell gesture for Fireball, they make their own.
Yeah.
They use it a few times, reinforcing until they got it down. And then for the rest of the game, that's how they cast a fireball.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
That would be fantastic.
That'd be absolutely amazing.
Up my alley, you could simulate picking a pocket.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Or applying a poultice, like if someone's injured.
That's true.
So it's like in order to apply a poultice, you have to take like your right hand and slap it onto your left shoulder.
Yeah.
There's actually one of the mods I have for Fallout 4 VR. I have to reach behind my left shoulder to grab a stim pack.
There you go.
And then I have to stab my right hand. That's not truly gesture recognition, but could you imagine doing that out of VR, where your webcam is showing how you're doing something, so you're playing your game and, oh crap, I'm injured.
Yeah.
So you take your right hand, slap it to your left shoulder, and you just healed yourself.
You just healed, yeah.
It's just crazy. What else can we do with the human body?
Eye tracking.
How can a dev today use that?
Okay, so you can have important events only occur when the player is looking directly at the subject. Or you can see where the player is looking and then move something spooky just in their peripheral vision.
So imagine this, okay? The biggest problem of any developer, especially a 3D developer, is that you have an important thing like a train derailing.
Yeah.
But the player is looking off to the side at that neat, pretty Lambo you made.
Yeah.
And they miss the train crashing. And, some players are going to be like, oh, well, okay, Sarah. Others are going to be upset. Hey, I missed that cool thing.
Yeah.
Well, with eye tracking, you could not initiate it until your eye tracking software picks up the players looking in that direction.
Isn't that perfect? Yeah. And horror games, you're looking at a doll, and the doll is just sitting there. The player looks away, and the doll moves.
Or the peripheral you're talking about. Because, let's say you're looking towards a door, and you don't see anything. But then you look over at a painting, and just when you get to the angle to where the game says, okay, so the player's looking in this direction, and I'm going to do a calculation. Approximately 120 degrees to the right is just at the peripheral. Ghost goes past the doorway.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. And
God, that would be amazing.
And you can do it with eye tracking technology. Speaking of technology that needs work, cloud gaming. You can still do this. Now, the technology as a whole still needs a lot of work, but think about this. Process the parts of the game that are not related to the GPU. up in the cloud.
Yeah.
Use the cloud for the non-GPU stuff and use the GPU on the computer, console, whatever.
Yeah.
Try to balance the load. But even better, I think, honestly, I want to see the cloud be used more to hold records, like time, how long they've played.
Yeah, stuff like that.
So the cloud is keeping an eye on how long the player's been playing. And then reminds you all to take a break.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Wow. The goodwill that you generate from that.
Or, hey, it's time to feed your pet from the AR game, right? Things like that, where the cloud is keeping an eye on all the different parts of the player's playing experience, and then saying, hey, Haas, do this. Hey, Haas, do that.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. And your favorite?
Oh, let's talk about machine learning. This is where the sky is truly the limit right now.
Oh, yes.
You learn how the player plays the game. Then have the game increase that experience through challenges, assistance, sights and sounds, events, and even more.
Basically, have the game play along with the player.
Yeah.
If you can use machine learning to where the game is the co-pilot, then you've won. You've won. It's
But again, as a developer, you're going to want to deep dive into these technologies, see what it takes to learn them, to use them, to do them.
And
what sort of programming do you need to know?
Step outside your comfort zone.
You're going to have to.
You're going to have to. So now it's time for us to take questions from our live audience.
If you've been watching, remember to use the podcast question feature in our chat.
Yep, only costs 50 channel points. So while we're waiting to see if any questions show up, I do want to go back to that whole outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
The hobbyist developers just want to use, and this is not an insult to hobbyist developers, we love you guys, but you're going to use the tools you have, you're going to just make your game. But the indie developer who wants to dive into how this would be a career for them, which is what season 1 of this podcast is about, they're going to want to look at these technologies, walk outside their comfort zone, and really see how they can use it. Now, the good news is a lot of these technologies comes with things like APIs. APIs are what connect one program to another.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of these things already have those pipelines, those APIs already built. So all you have to do is just buy the facial recognition software, and if it's compatible with Unity, plug the two together.
The nice thing is that we do have infrastructure in place now to handle some of this, and in the immediate future, the infrastructure is getting upgraded.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's within the next 3 years, you're going to be seeing huge amounts of data streams.
Yeah.
Coming into it moving through the pipeline at breathtaking speed. So what we're talking about today, again, not only could potentially be mainstream next year at this time, but even if it's not, it's going to be a lot easier to do. Going back to voice recognition, that's the best example. Voice recognition sucked 10 years ago. Yep, it sure did.
And now is legitimately everywhere.
Yeah.
We turn our lights in our house on and off through voice recognition.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, we do have a question.
Oh, here's a question.
From Ace of Aces. Says, rapid fire question. Considering that computers are slowly adopting ARM CPUs, could it allow devs to take advantage of stuff like Raspberry Pi to build something unique? That is a very, very good question. Raspberry Pi, those little put together little mini computers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, I would like to see Raspberry Pis, which would hold like maybe a single application or something, be used for things like a haptic feedback glove. So, it connects, put a little wireless receiver on there that connects to the main piece of hardware and have it be so that it's a full glove that covers your entire hand. And then the fibers of the glove tighten when you're gripping a virtual object so that you don't want it. You can't grip anymore because you're already, holding on to that gun handle. Yeah. That sword handle in virtual space, and the fibers of the glove have constricted too much. You can't close your hand anymore.
Yeah.
But a little Raspberry Pi, a little tiny machine, is powering that because it's just doing one thing.
Yeah.
So absolutely, Ace, you can absolutely use tiny little devices to bring stuff to the next level. You just got to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And when that question was asked, you were just thinking about building like an emulator, which is what a lot of people use Raspberry Pis before, we just thought out of the box for you. Let's go that direction. Good question, though.
That was a very good question. We got another one. This is from KV.
Okay.
Have you heard of how developers have been using these tools, particularly eye tracking and machine learning, for developing and testing games? If so, could you talk about it briefly?
Okay. So let's see if we can get this question out, because this is well put together, but may not be. I might have a question. So let's see. Have you heard of how developers are using these tools, developing and testing? Okay, I see what he's talking about. Okay, yeah. So things like machine learning are being used to help develop games. Think like procedural generation.
Yeah, it's the procedurally generated.
Right. Like in other words, the machine is given its test data, its training data, and then is given sets of variables to create like levels, and then the machine creates the levels. That is absolutely being used right now.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about the eye tracking. That's why I had to reread the question, because I was like, eye tracking? But I'm sure that it is. But machine learning, games are writing games now.
That's true. They are.
Not like massive, like HAL 9000 is creating Phasmophobia, but games are creating parts of games, and that technology is absolutely the way it's going to go.
And if they are using eye tracking to help develop and test games, that is an awesome use, next gen use of eye tracking, because it's initially been used to help those who have paralysis.
Yes.
Be able to do things using their eyes.
Right. Right. In fact, I think the first use of eye tracking was blinking to make a character jump or something like that. Yeah. It was an experiment.
So honestly, I think that's a great use of eye tracking, and I'll have to do some more deep diving into that. I'm not sure who's using that right now.
Yeah.
But I would definitely consider using eye tracking to test particular actions in a game.
I would agree. And as machine learning for testing, 100%. We've gone over that in previous classrooms and such.
Yeah.
That there is AI that's whole purpose is to test a game.
Yeah.
And they're doing the job of beta testers, Halo testing, all of that. So very good question, KV. Let's see if we have any others. And while we're waiting to see if anyone else has a question, which of these technologies, other than machine learning, are you really excited about? Yeah, go ahead, Flip. It's okay.
Let's see. I am really excited about. I'm really excited about the haptic feedback.
Yeah.
I want to. It's for me. It's not enough to see the world. I want to feel the world. I want to experience the world. So that haptic feedback is so very important. If I want to pick up an apple, I want to reach out, grab it, and pick it up. I want to feel that apple.
I agree completely. Because normally I would say VR because that's my favorite, but let's leave that aside for a second. I really want to see where haptic feedback goes.
Yeah.
Touch is one of the most important senses we have. It's not our strongest, but it's definitely one of our most important because we live through our entire body. Every inch of our external body goes through the touch.
Yeah.
It senses the world through touch. It also is how we detect heat, texture, everything. And I want to see it go beyond that.
I want to see it. I was thinking about that hot and cold. I would love to, I put my hand into virtual snow and I feel cold. It's cold. I grip a cold flagon of ale and I feel the cold. Or I'm near a fire, flames, and I'm warming my hands and I feel warm. It feels warm.
And you were talking about like your cold mug of ale. You could also simulate a wet feeling by putting out just that certain type of smoothness that feels liquid.
Yeah.
In fact, going back to the magic haptic glove that I want to have with the Raspberry Pi that triggers it, I want to be able to do that. You'd have a glove where the fibers in the glove can be heated or chilled very quickly. Not a lot, just literally, it only takes a degree or two to give the sensation of heat and cold.
Yes.
So, have your haptic super gloves, your Power Glove version 12. And if they touch something cold, the fibers chill a little bit, just a little, to give you that sensation you're touching something cold. or they warm up a little bit
Yeah.
to give you that sensation of something hot. Or if you touch something that's kind of textured and prickly, the fibers kind of poke a little bit.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
So that's the kind of experiences I want to see us go towards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't see any other podcast questions. So I guess we're going to be wrapping it up.
Oh, sure.
But,
this is an exciting subject, and I myself am really diving into it. I want to see a whole lot more be made with these.
Absolutely.
Push in those directions.
Absolutely. It's come down to this. People have been playing games, video games, for decades. But now they want to do more than just play the game. They want to experience. You're always going to have your casual gamers who just want to tappity tap on their phone, and that's all they do. But gamers want to experience more and more. They see movies like Tron, and they see animes like Sword Art.
You see The Matrix.
They see The Matrix, and they're like, well, why can't we do that? Well, we are not anywhere close to being able to plug a person's brain into a computer and giving them a full dive experience. We're not there. But there's a lot of things that we can do in the meantime that will be just enough.
I think so.
All right. So we want to thank everybody for showing up.
Absolutely.
Our live audience, you guys have been amazing as always. Fantastic questions. For those of you who listen to us on our various
platforms,
iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, I believe we're now on iHeartRadio.
Oh, yeah. Well, then I hope we got some iHeartRadio listeners.
Absolutely. To every last one of you, we love you guys. We hope that our information and that this podcast and all the others have given you a little bit more on what it's going to, a little bit more to become a good indie developer.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, please join us next time for DLC Not Included. And remember,
anyone can give you the key, but you have to go through the door.